Britain. And I have the prospect, the issue to present that with lots of happy people. Actually, we think there would have been a better title for it. Instead of making migration work for Britain, it should have been called Making Migrants Work for Britain. So what is the noticeable change here? Just to say briefly, the new immigration law makes, for good reason, makes not a big difference between students or other migrants workers coming to this country. And I will later explain why I think that this is kind of consequent from their perspective. So there are two major aspects we see which changed with the points-based immigration system. One, Valerie already touched, is the outsourcing of immigration to what they call sponsors, which is in effect employers, and the university management is basically seen as employers for students in that context. And this kind of distributed responsibility, as we said already, covers very nicely the fact that immigration rules are actually more tight than before and not opening anything up or something like this. One thing Valerie already mentioned as well is the removal of almost all chances to appeal against border agency decisions and the complete dependency in your relationship with the sponsor of your visa. You actually have very little to do anymore with the border agency itself. It's basically a private relationship between a visa applicant and a sponsor. The second aspect is probably even more interesting. If we read the official propaganda statements by the Labour government during the introduction or during the kind of phase of propagating the points-based immigration system, the kind of headline of this was always, we need migrants to fill the gaps in the British labour market. And if I quote Charles Clarke, who wrote the official introduction into the points-based system a few years ago, I actually forgot what exactly his job was, but he wrote that. He says, the UK needs a world-class migration system to attract the brightest and the best from across the world, while at the same time being more robust against abuse. And then he kind of finalizes his statement with, it will revolutionize the way in which migration to this country works. The sad thing here is that he might be even right with that. So why actually, for example, are students treated in the same way, or other people mentioned in the points-based system, apart from migrants workers like artists or anything else, are actually treated in the same way? Well, of course, we all know that nowadays the new resources of what is generally called like a post-Fordist economy, these resources are actually knowledge, are actually skills and material goods which have to be traded. And so this is a kind of picking up on the resources of the future. And we see that actually people, migrants here, are not treated as a subject who have their own motivations, but basically as human resources for the economy. So this all was introduced under the kind of label of what is widely called in Europe nowadays managed migration. And if it says managed migration, it means that migration has to benefit the economy of a country, and it means little else than treating migration as a business model. And in this phase, the title managed migration is actually correct. Many people understand managing migration means managing it for a kind of administration work, but it means actually managing. And a manager is not managing a company for the sake of employees, it's managing the people for the sake of a company. And I mean, this is what you learn in business class in the first year, I guess. I don't know if any business students are here, but anyway. So, I mean, lots of people would consider this actually as a kind of new colonialism, like drawing the brightest people on the knowledge and the skills from all over the world for the benefit of Britain, without actually granting or giving them the same rights as people who come from the UK. And kind of changing their rights according to how the economy is running. Now you might say that this is a kind of in the new economy obvious or normal development, but we still have to kind of ask why this approach to treat people and to treat migrants like this is actually going through so smoothly. And we have to say, we have to acknowledge that the Labour government, and with them all the Social Democrats governments in Europe in the last 10 years, have actually done a really good job in that. And it's probably no coincidence that especially so the most Socialist Democrats party, who historically developed from the Socialist Party, understood the system of exploitation rather better than conservatives. Well, the idea that a country, and migration is a very crucial part of running a country, managing migrants, the country has to be run as a company, was first officially, as I could find, kind of phrased by the German ex-Chancellor Gerhard Schröder. This is, by the way, as you remember, the same guy who wrote the New Labour Manifesto with Tony Blair in, I think, '98, the kind of guidelines for the future of Europe. And he called actually for something, what he called at that time, we need something like a Germany incorporated. We need to run the country with the same rules as we would run the company. And this, of course, implies outsourcing on many different levels, and this, of course, implies outsourcing of control as well as the actual migration. So where does come our borders in here? I mean, we have always claimed that the nation-state historically is a kind of fiction which is set up to define a kind of closed identity. So you can actually have a group identity, and historically in the rather old days this was done by having kind of common cultural identity, like language, for example, or a history, a common history, which in some examples like the German history, for example, is rather made up, but you had this on different levels. However, nowadays, this identity is completely different. This identity tries more and more to define yourself as an economic entity, as an economic community, and you actually judge who can join or have to leave this community by what's good for this for this identity or for this economic model. And it's probably and I'm finishing in a minute. It's probably no coincidence that Labour, when they introduced this, they first introduced this in a kind of joint statement with different groups from the society, and they introduced it together with the Trades Union Congress in 2005 in cooperation with representatives from the industry. And I think we have to be very careful if we campaigning, and that's basically my last thing, if we're campaigning against these new immigration laws, if we're campaigning against this kind of paradigm shift which is happening in understanding how a country is run, we have to be very careful in claiming that we actually know what is good for Britain, because we might be on a very thin ice if we claim this, because we might even join this perspective. And if we see, for example, in the last years, big immigration, kind of pro-immigration campaigns who also took that up, this kind of slogan, like we had 2 years ago, we had in London the Strangers into Citizens campaign, who actually said exactly the same thing, like regularization for those who benefit Britain. We have to be very careful